everyone, it's Ashley here. I'm here to do a video for you about going on your first photo shoot and just how I prepare for my first photo shoot and just every photo shoot actually I go on. I'm actually doing my first photo shoot of the kind of spring and summer season today, so I'm really excited, and I thought I would just kind of share the process of how I prepare to look very professional and just be successful. So the very first thing you want to do is make sure when you're talking with the client, you get all the specifics down. You definitely want to be asking questions, like if you're doing a senior, you want to be asking, are they going to be doing an outfit change? Are they going to be bringing any props that they want incorporated into the photo shoot? Just make sure that you kind of have that information beforehand so you won't be kind of put on the spot and surprised later, and you'll just kind of know exactly what to expect. Also, just make sure you get all the specifics down about the location, where you guys are meeting, how they're going to pay, and if you are charging, how they're going to pay, and just everything like that. You definitely, the last thing you want is to say you're meeting at a park and then find out there's 3 different entrances and be like, oh geez, and all stressed out. So just make sure, the more specifics you get and just the clearer that you are about, the shoot, just the less pressure it's going to take off your shoulders. So definitely be aware and be very, very specific about that. As well, tip number 2 is just with the location, if you can, I would recommend checking it out beforehand, and that way you can just kind of get an idea of where you would like to shoot, and where some places would look good, so that way when you're with a client you can just be like, oh okay, come over here, stand right here, done, instead of you having to kind of look around, or at least get there early. Yeah, that's another tip. I always get to my sessions about 20 minutes early. I would definitely prepare even maybe 20 to a half hour early, just in case of traffic or you can't find the entrance or anything. Just make sure you're early rather than late. And so yeah, just make sure you're prepared for that. But if you are a little early, just walk around. If you've never been there, check it out, and so that way you can just appear very, very professional when you're photographing. Alright, tip number 3, this is something I always do, is once you get a client booked, make sure you do some research. I always research, if I'm booked for an engagement session, I will look up engagement session photos on Google and just see what other photographers are doing. This is great, especially if you're new to photography and you're, not too familiar. This will really help you with posing and just composition, because the more kind of photographs you look at, you'll kind of see, oh, okay, this is a pretty common pose. I like this. I like this. Oh, I thought this would look cute, but after seeing some photos, I don't really like it anymore. And so that way you'll know, how to position your clients and just where to put their hands and everything, which just makes up a huge part of the photo. I'll just share some basic composition tips with you that we do for our work. You typically never want to photograph head on, like straight in front. You typically always want to photograph not sideways, but like halfway in between sideways and at like a 45-degree angle, I would say. So, you want to get them turned halfway towards you and then look back with their head a little bit. You never want to photograph them someone like front on. For guys, just a pretty common pose that we do is hands crossed in front of the chest and just kind of leaning back, smiling. For girls, a pretty common one we do is hands on the hip. Just make sure that, they're not doing this, they're not, hands in a funky place. You just want hands just like this. So yeah, those are some basic tips that we do. You don't want any hands hanging on by their sides or, kind of out of place. And also just make sure that everything, if you're doing multiple couples or multiple people, make sure that everyone is the same. So, if all the guys have if all the girls, you know, had their hands on the hips, sorry, what I'm trying to say is if one girl has their hands on the hips, make sure they're all doing it and it's all the same way. And you know, if all the guys, you could do it like all guys, you know, hands in their pockets or something. So, you know, just be sure that everything's very you know, just kind of together and composed so that it's kind of cohesive with the whole image. That's one of the first things that I can kind of tell when I'm looking at an amateur image is like, you know, it just, they'll be doing multiple people and they just won't really flow together. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is just your equipment. Make sure everything is charged up. I always charge all the batteries. I carry extra batteries. Actually, you know, if it's a very, very important shoot, I will actually carry an entire separate camera with me just in case my camera like suddenly dies, just in case. If you don't have that, you know, just make sure you have extra batteries. I get that, you know, when I was first starting out, I definitely did not have, you know, tons of equipment. So if you do just have something basic, that's fine. However, you know, just make sure you're very prepared. Make sure all of your memory cards are formatted and clean. Just make sure you have extra memory cards. Memory cards and like AA batteries are just things that, you know, are very, very easy to purchase and cheap, and that it's just nice to kind of have backups just in case. You never know. So I always bring a variety of lenses. This is just the regular lens that came with the camera. As well, I have a telephoto lens and a just a 50mm lens that goes down to a 1.4, which is great for, you know, getting blurred backgrounds, which I love doing for portraits. I typically use that lens, and my telephoto lens for like weddings and stuff like that, where I can't get very close and I don't want to be obtrusive. So yeah, I always bring a variety of lenses. If you don't have any right now, that's fine. It took me, you know, a couple years. I just, you know, birthdays, Christmases, you know, I just kind of kept building up my collection. So that's, you know, how I do it. As well, one thing I would highly recommend if you do plan on doing a lot of serious photography, get an external flash. This is just so handy. I just feel like this is one of the products, like I bought some photography products that I'm like, I don't really use a lot. This I use all the time. It is so handy. I use this for indoor photography when I am, you know, photographing in a church or something where the light's going to be very, very low and just kind of unsightly. You're going to get harsh shadows and everything. As well, I love using this outside because it just has this pop-up diffuser here. And sometimes, you know, I'll point it right at the subjects, typically always like this. And then sometimes I will point it up a little bit if it's just a little bit too bright, but no, typically I go, you know, straight in front. And this is great because it just kind of diffuses the light, gets some of the harsh shadows off their faces, and then from the sun, and then it also just kind of gives a more like natural, even light than the sunlight does. So it also gets rid of some of kind of the under eye circles and dark circles under the eyes and everything. So I absolutely love that. If you don't have one, I would absolutely recommend it. So that's kind of the camera stuff I would recommend with you. As soon as I get home, I always back up my images on an external hard drive, and then I edit them. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I do for the camera. My final tip would be just, you know, as a photographer's job, you're supposed to get people relaxed and smiling, which is really hard, you know, for me, especially because I'm not super outgoing. One thing you can do is just ask questions. You know, if they're engaged and you're doing an engagement session, just ask, you know, oh, how's the wedding going? You know, tell me about the proposal. Just spending 5 minutes with your client, just ask them questions. If they're a senior, how's senior year going? You know, just spending those 5 minutes just kind of talking, chatting with their client about their life will really get them more comfortable and get them to open up on camera. As well, I love, you know, in the midst of a photo shoot, just asking them to look at each other or do something silly, just to get them to loosen up a little bit. So, yeah, those are pretty much all my photography tips for preparing for a shoot. Bye, guys. Hope this helps.